Hey everybody, it's Dean Wolf here. I've got a guest, Louis Garcia. He's a huge music fan of prog rock, is one of his main genres, I guess. But I mean, you're into everything. He's always been buzzing
Yeah,
in my ears with all kinds of suggestions. He just got together 20 albums in no particular order, just that were the best albums of the year, and there's quite a variety there. So let's dive in and do this right now.
I don't even think I scratched the surface. I came up with 20 and I was like, I left out a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm sorry if I left out any bands. Number one is Wilderun, Epigon. That was released in like January, the beginning of the year. You
Now,
know,
I think I've reacted to one from that.
like medieval Renaissance type of vibe they give off on their
Mhm.
some of their songs. You know.
They're pretty unique, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And they're from Boston. Everybody thinks they're from like Europe. And I was like, no, they're from Boston. Number two is Michael Romeo, World of Worlds Part 2. Part 1 was 2018. Man, that's like more like a metal opera. Michael Romeo's he's the guitarist for Symphony X. Man, he's like up there with like John Petrucci. This album is worth checking. I mean, you should do a full album react to that one. All right, number three is the Jonas Lindberg and the Other Side. The album is Miles from Nowhere. Now, this one, if you're a fan of Spock's Beard, Neil Morse Band, anything like Fusion or something like Neil Prog, every song is like almost like an epic. And the song Miles from Nowhere, I think it's like 25-minute epic. I mean, that album right there is like up to like Neil Morse Band type standards. Number four is Perius. This is a progressive rock / metal album, concept album. The Signal Heard Throughout Space. That's like RWPL type sounding progressive rock mixed with like symphonic metal. Let me just get the obvious out the way. Number five is Porcupine Tree, Closure, Continuation.
I've been watching some different channels with their lists, and that one comes up a lot for sure.
We were waiting 12 years for that album.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what can you say? What else? Enough said, you know. All right, this next one is called Arena. This one is like a super prog. Did you ever react to Frost?
I have.
Well, this is some of the members of them, and I think you've reacted to Lonely Robot before, haven't you?
I think I have.
Well, it's like a super prog of those two bands put together, and
Okay.
at the vocal is Damian Wilson. Now, Damian Wilson, if that you'll hear that name more and more often if you dig more into prog. He's a vocalist, man, but he collabs with almost everybody. He's like James LaBrie, that kind of singing. The album is called The Theory of Molecular Inheritance. Next one is Prehistoric Animals. Now, you remember that first one, the Magical Carpet, whatever, you said it was like a concept album. You expected good things out of this band in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
This one is better. It's a part two of the first album. This one's more proggier. I got a signed copy of the first album from Bandcamp. That's a very cool album cover. You should check that one out. I think you'll agree. You have to play the first album first and then the second one because it's a storyline. The first one is pretty good, but the second one blows the first one out of the water. So,
Okay.
number 8 is another one I recommended like 2 years ago. You only heard one song. Soul Splitter. It's called Connection. Kind of more like proggy gent, but they mix it with like jazz fusion type of classical playing. This time they're playing even tighter than the first album. I just picked this one because this one is very interesting to me. This band called Zeal and Ardor. Now, this is more like black folk music. Say if like Richie Haven was singing and then he had a black metal band,
Yeah.
but with progressive elements. Number 10 is, of course, Rammstein, Zeit
Yes.
album. It's like somebody saying, hey, you remember that crappy Rammstein album? You're like, and you're like, yeah, me neither. They've never put out a crappy album, like ever. I've been a fan since 95. Now, this next one is All Things Fallen. Now, this one is more like it's the Dream Theater-ish type of sound, but it's like with a very dark theme. I can't remember. I said I had to do a rush up job, so I'm kind of like sorry if I can't go into detail.
That's okay.
But if Things Fallen, Shadow Way. So you're going to get that kind of Dream Theater-ish virtuoso type of sound.
Yeah.
Like vibe from them. It has a supernatural type of vibe to it. Okay, now this next one I'm a big fan of is from Poland, Retrospective, Introvert. Now this one is like very classical, like neo-prog, carrying like Rick Miller type of vibe, kind of like a dreary type of mood. but very like neo prog.
I'm going to have an interview with Retrospective. They reached out to me actually, and
Really?
I downloaded their album. I'm going to do a review on it.
Now the next one is DiVirgilio, Morris and Jennings, the Troika album. Ross Jennings, Neil Morse, something Virgilio from oh crap, I can't remember his first name. It's like a Crosby, Stills and Nash for prog, because this one is pretty good. That one right there is pretty much what you would expect out of if you're a fan of Transatlantic, Neil Morse Band, Haken, Spock's Beard, The Watch, pretty much anything that follows that classical Genesis type sounding prog. One of the more popular ones of 2022. All right, number 14 is Nothing in Writing. Well, this one here, and you gotta check out the new King's X album.
Yeah.
I just remembered it because I put Nothing in Writing because they sound just like them.
Oh, okay.
And they reached out to me and I asked them, I was like, are you guys big King's X fans? They were like, yes, it's one of our favorites. Oh, and the guitarist, he's also the guitarist of Odd Logic. I have to recommend that band. The album's available on Bandcamp. That's another progressive rock band I got to introduce you to. It's a really good band. It's a really great album. New Lives for Rent. That's the name of the album. Okay. Now, Epica is number 15, The Alchemy Project. Now, this is a collaboration album. It's like with Flesh God, Apocalypse. You're not familiar with that kind of band, but a lot of the viewers, I'm pretty sure, are familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And a whole bunch of, it's like a collaboration with a whole bunch of bands. But it's Epica, the band, but always with somebody like a guest, vocalist.
Yeah, very interesting band. I've loved everything I've reacted to it.
And before I forget, there is one album I didn't put on here. Are you familiar with the band Collage?
No.
Well, this is neo-progressive band, sort of like with Marillion, like Fish era Marillion, like 80s Marillion, 80s, 90s prog. They just released an album in just a few weeks ago. Next one is number 16. Is from guitars from King's X, Ty Tabor. The album's called Shades. Now he has more like a Beatle-esque type of vibe to it. I don't know if you ever reacted to any of his solo stuff.
No.
Like a psychedelic Beatles type of vibe to it. It's very Southern rock at the same time. You've heard his music on when you heard his guitaring in Summerland. That's Ty Tabor on guitar.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Of course, now number 17 is Lonely Robot. This is more like the pop prog. Some of the songs are like really like have like a Stuart Copeland Police type sound to it. It's called A Model Life. Number 18, this is more for the technical death metal. I had to throw this one in there because nobody ever mentions them. You might not agree with the growling and the blast beats, but some of them actually do incorporate progressive elements, like different time changes, not so much, you know what I mean? Different like movements. Now this band is called Fallujah, and the name of the album is called The Bitter Taste of Clarity. Now this is for the progressive death metal lover, but it's one of the better albums of 2022. Two members from Fates Warning in one band. It's called A to Z. It's the self-titled album. This is Ray Alder and Mark Zonder. They used to play together in the same band when Fates Warning. I don't know if you've ever reacted to Fates Warning yet.
Actually, I haven't, and I'm going to.
They played together on the 1991 album Parallels. After a while, you have to react to that one.
Okay.
But this one. Now, if anybody will tell you, Ray Alder is a phenomenal bass player, bar none, and he's a hell of a vocalist. And Mark Zonder is pretty much awesome at drums. 20, band called Crown versus Ravens. So We Shall Have to Learn. That's the name of the album. Now, that one is by one artist, instrumental / progressive metal. It's definitely worth a check, though. That does it for my 20 right there.
All right, so thanks a lot, Louis, for taking the time to do a little bit of research and pull that together. I think what I like about your list is that you're not picking all the obvious ones. Obviously, there are like Porcupine Tree is a more obvious one or whatever, but looking out for the little guys out there.
It's not fair that you got a lot of bands that are just as good as Dream Theater and all those other, top progressive rock metal bands that'll never get any airplay because I don't know, because
Well,
for
they don't have a
some
label
stupid
pushing
reason.
them. Yeah, they don't have a label pushing them or whatever. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
But I've seen some really awesome bands get overlooked, and I try to get them
Mhm.
exposure. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks a lot for this, Louis. I'll be editing this right away and put it up pretty soon.
All right,
Yeah.
man. No
All
problem.
right. Okay. You take care.
Yeah, you too, man.